Hello and welcome to Sincerely Elvis Presley. I'm Sean. Whether you're new to the channel or a regular viewer, thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate it. I'd like to talk a little bit about Elvis in the Army, 1958 to 1960, the sort of strange bit in the middle of Elvis's career where he'd rocketed to stardom, was heading full on, career exploding, and then poof, suddenly it was put on hold. And you can understand in his head he must have thought, what's happening? It's done. I'm done for, you know. All my wildest dreams have come true, and now it's being taken away from me. Luckily, he had Colonel Parker, and that's not a sentence you'll hear me say often, but I think in this context Parker was brilliant because it played to his strength. Parker was a great publicist. He had a huge amount of flaws and did a huge amount of damage to Elvis's career in other areas, in my opinion. But as a publicist, the guy was a genius. And to keep Elvis in the public eye for 2 years while he was away serving Uncle Sam took somebody like Parker, and he achieved it in spades, didn't he? So, you know, you've got to give him that. But yeah, so as I said when we looked at King Creole, in December, it was December the 20th, 1957, Elvis receives his call-up papers. Now this was, and let me get my facts right here, the Universal Military Training and Service Act of 1951 required national service of American citizens. Elvis qualified for national service, so, you know, he was called up. He wrote to the draft board and asked them to defer his induction because he had commitments and needed to film King Creole. So it wasn't until March the 24th, 1958 that he was inducted into the army. The following day he had the famous hair cut off, and then on the 28th he headed to Fort Hood, Texas for his basic training. There's your basic timeline. Now what I thought was interesting, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what bits and pieces I have in the collection to do with Elvis's army years. And I think, like most of us, that's probably one of the smaller parts of my collection because it's kind of almost a footnote to Elvis's career. It isn't really to do with the music, is it? It's not to do with the movies, it's not to do with the live performances, you know. So it's a strange one really in terms of what you have in the collection. But I'm going to give a special and honourable mention to this really, really great book by Trina Young, Elvis, The Army Years Uncovered. This is a relatively new publication. It's only been out, I think, 2 or 3 years. 2021. So it's coming up to 4 years old now. You don't have this one in the collection. I'd heartily recommend it. It is easy peasy to get hold of. It isn't expensive at all. And it is full of a wealth of information. It's obviously, being the type of book it is, it's primarily text. So you're not going to come in here expecting tons of pictures, which is quite right. But in terms of the information this gives you about Elvis's army years, it is highly, highly recommended. Just fabulous stuff. So, Elvis in the army. Here's some little factoids for you. You may or may not know these. I wasn't. If I was aware of them, I'd forgotten them. So, the Navy offered to create a special company for Elvis made of his friends from Memphis, apparently. The Army offered to let Elvis tour the world to boost morale among soldiers. And here's this one. The Pentagon offered Elvis the chance to join special services, which would allow him to entertain troops without training as a regular soldier. So it seems like a lot of options were given to him. But Elvis was a patriot. And I guess probably with the advice of the colonel, took the view that I just want to be a regular soldier. I want to serve my country in a regular way, get it done, do my duty, job done. So he decided not to take any of these offers, which would have potentially given him an easier ride. And I guess, you know, with option 2 and 3, he could have toured the world and still been playing his music and still been out there performing. But no, I think the general consensus is it was probably heavily influenced by the Colonel, because he saw the army as the way to turn Elvis in, to gain him acceptance, to dilute the rebel, make him that wholesome all-American boy that would appeal to a much wider audience. You appeal to a much wider audience, your sales potential increases exponentially, because you're not just targeting those teenagers that love the rebel, you can appeal to everyone. That was the Colonel's philosophy, or certainly the idea behind the Colonel's philosophy. And I guess had some of those other routes been taken, it might not have presented quite the picture to the public that the Colonel was looking for. So I imagine maybe deep down some of those might have been attractive to Elvis, because he didn't want to see his career nosedive. He didn't know what was going to happen. So hey, if he could have carried on and been touring the world, not only would he get to see the world, but he could still play his music. So potentially, I think, in the back of his mind, they might have been attractive ideas to him. But my gut, from everything I've read, says it was the Colonel that wanted that straight route through national service, like any other soldier, as one of these books is called. And that would achieve the Colonel's goal, the all-American boy. That's the way I see it. Let me know in the comments if you don't agree, or you've read anything different or anything contradictory. But that's the way I see it, that, you know, the Colonel got his way in the end because he had a goal to achieve. So we don't get 0-0 music from Elvis throughout this period, because of course June the 10th and 11th he's allowed leave, and the Colonel, he knows in 1958 he's got the music from King Creole will be coming out, so we'll have singles coming off there. There are recordings from 57 that can still be used and are in the bag, but he wants enough material to eke that out for those 2 years, so that Elvis is kept in the public consciousness, kept in the charts while he's away, so that when he comes back at the beginning of 60, it's almost like he's never been gone. So June the 10th to 11th, 58, Elvis is back in Studio B, and he records 5 tracks. And these 5 tracks: I Need Your Love Tonight, A Big Hunk of Love, Ain't That Loving You Baby, Now and Then There's a Fool Such as I, and I Got Stung. Absolute belters, every one of those 5. And I think if you listen to the attack and the density of things like Big Hunk of Love, I Need Your Love Tonight, there's a frenetic attack in those that's, again, something new. We hadn't quite heard that level of aggression, that level of density. So, you know, whether that's a result of Elvis knowing that this is the last time he's going to be in a studio for well over a year and a bit, whether it's, you know, the culmination of his frustrations as what's happening, I don't know. But, you know, there's a definite attack in that music that, you know, it's brilliant, isn't it? Let's face it, it's brilliant. But you know, that one shot we got, and then that was it, other than the home recordings that have come out since that were made while he was in Germany, etc. That was it in terms of his recording career, to be put on hold until 1960. But, you know, as I say, the Colonel, as we know, was great. And interesting. So this is the album that kind of capitalised on Elvis in the army in a big way while he was away, because we got this photograph of him in his, I believe he's in a Mercedes there, and this was while he was on leave. And, you know, to take it one step further, they even put the calendar on the back with the date of his release from the army circled, as if to sort of hammer home, look, you know, this is when he's coming back. Just genius marketing. You know, pull out a load of tracks we haven't put on an album before, and put Elvis in his uniform, but remind people he's coming back. So just again, you know, like I said, for all his faults, the Colonel was a marketing genius. I do have another copy of A Date with Elvis, and this is one of these public domain releases on Wax Time. So your front cover stays reasonably faithful to the original, though the font's completely different at the top, and Elvis's face is rather oversaturated in the colour, but completely different back. You do get a shot of Elvis in the army in Germany there. And this is a rather lurid orange vinyl. Quite nice though. And talking of the way that they exploited Elvis and the army, you know, when he comes back with Elvis's back, now this is a Wax Time release, and this is a reasonably faithful reproduction of the front. The back is completely not how the back was at all. But what this does do is does reproduce the photographs that were in the original. So you get all these shots of Elvis in the army doing army type things and plugging GI Blues, what was at it. So that's really really quite faithful to the original, because I don't have an original gatefold press, but the back is completely different, but quite nice nevertheless. And then one release that sort of goes a step further, and this is Elvis's back. My friend Mark on Mark's Elvis for Everyone channel has shown this, but this is Soldier Boy. So this is the Elvis's back album, but reimagined with a complete army slant on it. And this is on green sort of splatter vinyl, which is it's quite nice. So one thing, when I must have been 8 or 9, and I memorised that army number off by heart. I've known it in my head. I don't know why I did it, but yeah, when I was a wee nipper, I could tell you Elvis's army number off the top of my head. I don't know why I did that, but anyway, I digress. Let's have a look at some books that document Elvis in the army, shall we? Let's start with this one. Now this was released in 2 iterations. The UK one, if I remember rightly, was called Private Elvis, I think. I'll put a picture up anyway. But it was Private Presley in the US. I did have this back in the day, and this was printed in, this is the first US edition, 1993. Now I did have a copy of this one, but you know, it went along with everything else I sold at the time. But when I picked this up again, what I really liked about this copy is, one, it was dirt cheap. I think I paid about £10-15. But what really attracted me to this copy is the price sticker on it is from A. Schwab's, 163 Beale Street. So this was bought in Memphis in Beale Street for the princely sum of $11. So I got a real kick out of that when it arrived. I was like, yeah, I'm keeping that price tag on there. So Private Presley, what do we get? I think we get a CD. Free inside, unique CD with 7 Elvis songs and rare interviews. I'm actually not sure what's on this. Oh, what have we got? Elvis in Germany, 1958. Elvis greets the foreign press. Tweedledee, Elvis in the army interview. I got a woman. We want Elvis. Fans chant for Elvis. Elvis in the army interview. Maybelline. That's all right, Mama. Right. So it sounds like interspersed with Yeah, October 1954. They're probably hayride recordings interspersed with interviews given while he was in the army. So you do get the little CD with it. But let's have a quick look at what Private Presley gives us. So, Jordanaires, interesting. That was a introduction, but why are the Jordanaires at the beginning? Why are the Jordanaires at the beginning? Looks like it's a foreword by Gordon Stoker. So, there we go, Presley. And this is a nice overview. I was thinking about those army interviews. There was that rather strange EP that was put out, Elvis Sales, which were some of the interviews he gave just as he was going into the army. And, you know, Colonel decided that, hey, let's put out an EP of Elvis interviews, which, I mean, it sold, but it's almost like he's getting early ideas for having fun with Elvis on stage there. So, yeah, wealth of photographs of Elvis in the army here. And also you've got Elvis when he's on leave. So he did travel to Paris twice and Munich twice, I believe, while he was on leave. So he did get to see some of Europe, other than the sort of locales he was based in and where he was actually doing his service. So this is a nice little overview, and this is one, either version, the UK version or the US one, can be picked up very reasonably indeed. And you are getting a fantastic wealth of photographs of Elvis in his army uniform. Elvis meets Dutch rock and roller Pim Mars. Oh yeah, wasn't he called the name was the Dutch Elvis or something? If I remember rightly. Nope. There's Priscilla. Of course, Elvis started developing his love for karate while he was in service. So yeah, this is as I say, a nice little book, and definitely one worth adding to the collection because you can get it at a really good price. So that is your Private Presley stroke Elvis stroke whichever version you happen to get, but it's the same book and worth having, I would say. Next, we've got another book called Private Elvis, and this is basically a photo document of Elvis's visit to Munich, and that was in March 1959. So 59, March the 3rd to the 5th, and he went to the Moulin Rouge. Now, this is a book I had when it first came out. So this I think this one's quite 1978. And I got this one. Now, there's some great photographs of Elvis in Munich, and it's a nice little record, but there are a few in here that you have to approach with a bit of caution if you're easily offended, because it must be remembered Elvis was going to the Moulin Rouge, and you know, some of the sights there, you know, I must admit, when I was a little kid, it was a bit eye-opening to me, some of the photographs in here. So I would approach with a note of caution with this one. And actually, that's an interesting point. You know, I'm pretty sure that the Colonel can't have known that Elvis was visiting places like the Moulin Rouge, because there was he, you know, using this national service as an attempt to clean up Elvis's image as far as the broader general public were concerned, and sort of pitch him as some kind of clean-cut all-American boy. And there he's kind of visiting some of these rather salubrious places in Europe and having the time of his life. And I'm sure the Colonel would have been none too pleased knowing that. But anyway, we start this book with some general shots of Elvis in the army, and we get some articles that were published at the time, and then we get to see Elvis when he first visits the Moulin Rouge in his full army uniform. But then the bulk of it is made up of photos of Rudolph Paulini, and we see Elvis when he's back at the Moulin Rouge without his army uniform, completely having some R&R and enjoying this famous nightclub. And it's just got loads and loads of great photographs of Elvis sort of relaxed and at ease. Really nice photographs. I just think, you know, he just looks amazing. I'm not quite sure why they've got a sort of pink tint to them, because obviously they would have been black and white. That must just be Red West. In fact, Red West seems to be wearing Elvis's jacket from Jailhouse Rock, or is it? I don't know if it's got the black velvet on the collar, but certainly the material looks very, very similar. Of course, that was a jacket. Yes, it was Lamar Fike. It was a jacket. That's not a great flattering shot of Elvis, is it? Yeah, that jacket from Jailhouse Rock. Of course, it was featured in Jailhouse Rock, but Elvis did wear it a lot. You know, outside of the film as well, because he was obviously really fond of that jacket. But yeah, just packed with photographs of Elvis, natural and relaxed. I think that was a German girl that I think he was dating for a while he was over there. She's certainly in a lot of photographs. I can't quite recall her name. If I can look it out. If I can look it up, I'll stick it on the screen. But yeah, very interesting little book. It is purely, there's a bit of text in German and English, but not much at all. It's purely a photo book. But as you can see, Elvis was just, the women were clearly falling all over him, quite understandably. But yeah, nice little book this, Private Elvis. Easy to pick up, £10 to £20 if that. Plenty of them around. Worth having a look at, but I say, if you're easily offended, just approach with caution, because there are a few X-rated, well, at least one X-rated photograph in there. Now, Elvis's trip to Paris. Now this is by, and I'm probably going to butcher the name here, Jean-Marie Puzenc. I'm not sure quite how it's pronounced. Now he did release a hardback, taller volume format, Elvis in Paris, but this one was printed later, and this because it was the 60th anniversary. This was available in two formats. There was this paperback, and there was a hardback with a 10-inch LP, which I wish I'd got at the time and I didn't, and it's virtually impossible to get. But the paperback, you can still pick this up. It is still around, but just the photography and you know, seeing Elvis in Paris, some great pieces in this. It's a lovely book. In French and in English. So, you know, it documents the period prior to the army years. June 1959, there we go. On the Champs-Élysées. Was that his first visit? Yeah, June 1959. So he went June the 13th to the 27th, Paris and Munich. And then January the 12th to the 17th, 1960, he was back in Paris. So he clearly liked the place, and I don't blame him. What I think is interesting is this has to be 60 and not the 59 visit. And why I say that, his hair looks dyed, or it's darker. So I think the press conference, if I'm right, yeah, it has to be, because if he went to Paris in June 59, his hair would have been as it was in those photographs in the Moulin Rouge in Munich. So it was clearly fair and it was quick, but it's more sort of almost cropped GI Blues style here. It's closer. He's going on about Elvis's hair again. You know, when I was very early teens, I spent ages developing a quiff and working out how best to style it, which is, as a teenager in late 70s Britain, you know, there wasn't, it was a bit trial and error. So yeah, I've always had a bit of a thing for Elvis's hair, because I tried to and failed miserably to emulate it myself. And the only way I could do it was with tons and tons of hairspray. So rather than a natural style like Elvis had where it used to fall about, mine was just like a massive concrete block on my there. But then the Stray Cats came along and made it okay to look like that, so it's fine. But yeah, this is fantastic. It's really lovely. I like these shots when you get him in his jumper, but he's wearing like a bootlace bolero tie around his neck, which I think's interesting. So yeah, this is a beautiful document. It really is a great, great book. Highly recommend this one. You're probably going to be talking, I'm going to guess, at £50-60 upwards, I would have thought, to get hold of this one. But a beautiful document of Elvis's time in Paris. But as I say, it does look to me, now that I'm flicking through it, as if this was the visit in 1960, which would make sense. It says 1959, but I think, yeah, I think the early ones are 59. I'm not sure what date that press conference was. If anyone knows, let me know in the comments, or if I find out in the meantime, I'll stick it up on the screen. But yeah, great book. Great book. Highly recommend that. Elvis in Paris. Now we've got, named after the album, A Date with Elvis. Now this is called Army Days Revisited. And this is a nice publication. If I remember rightly, I think it came with a poster. Yeah, so you get a poster of, I think it's a Loving You poster. It is indeed. It is a Loving You poster. That's not coming out well, is it? You get the idea. I'm not going to tear it, which I may well do if I try to. I used to hate maps and trying to fold them back up again. Right, A Date with Elvis. What do we get with this one? How old is this one? I think this is quite a rare one. So this is first edition 2004. And this is a general overview of Elvis in the army. What does it say? That's all in German. It hasn't got a... I think this is, if I remember rightly, I think this is Aaron Schroeder. So this is the same author that did Private Presley. And he sort of ups the ante a bit and goes for a lot more colour and a lot more detail in this one than he did in Private Presley. Yeah. So if it's not Aaron Schroeder solely, it's Aaron Schroeder and others. Oh, yeah, we go. Oh, not Schroeder, sorry. Schroeder. Yeah, we've got Schroeder, Knorr and Henschel. So those are the three guys involved in this one. And this one is hard to get hold of. You won't see this one come up often, which is a shame because, you know, sticking with that theme I tend to do, this is one of the real super duper quality ones. It's a really nice book. Pulls out some really quite rare photographs, and certainly rare photographs in colour, and you just get some brilliant information and images in this book. Just fantastic. If you are interested in knowing a little bit more about some of the locations that Elvis visited and was at while he was in Germany with the forces, then please do check out my friend David's Elvis World channel. And you will find some, if you go back a little bit through his videos, you will find some great videos walking in Elvis's footsteps throughout the locations while he was in the forces overseas. So well worth checking out David's videos. Please do if you get the chance. So there we go. This is a great book. Really great book. Some beautiful photographs in that one. So, Date with Elvis, as I say, it doesn't come up often. Fortunately, you're not going to pick it up cheaply. But if you do get the opportunity and you see it, I'm going to give that one a huge recommendation because it's great. And speaking of great, the last book I have to share on Elvis's army years is by Jerry Osborne and Barbara Hahn. And this is called Elvis Like Any Other Soldier. Now, Jerry Osborne did release an Elvis book prior to this, but this one was the 50th anniversary edition. So this sort of threw the kitchen sink at it, and it draws together everything that Jerry could find on Elvis and the army years, and it really is packed with information. You know, you start off with all the various recollections of Elvis's army colleagues and their recollections of Elvis, photographs of them with Elvis, And yeah, just beautiful. As ever, unfortunately, with some of the titles that I do show, this one doesn't come up often. You can still get this from Jerry Osborne's website, but if you're in the UK, unfortunately that now means adding on the cost of shipping from the US, which isn't cheap. But of course, if you are in the States, the shipping shouldn't be too much at all. So you can still get this from Jerry's website, but it seems like that's one of the only places to still get hold of a copy. I don't think there are many dealers that hold copies of this anymore. In fact, I can't remember what year it was. But yeah, loads and loads of pictures and information. So I always think, I wonder what Elvis looked back on his army years as, because I guess there must have been a sense in his head that it was a time of normality when, you know, aside from being Elvis Presley, that huge entertainer and celebrity, he was just Elvis the soldier. So there's probably a sense that he looked back with fondness on being able to be normal. But of course, you know, in some aspects, the idea that Elvis was a normal soldier is a bit of a myth, because he was allowed to live off barracks, which no other soldiers could do. His army uniforms were personally tailored for him. He didn't just get them from, you know, the army stores like everyone else. So the idea that it's just Elvis the normal soldier is a little bit bending the reality of things. But, you know, he's the service and the duties he did while he was there were just like everyone else, as all of the people that were with him at the time doing their service will attest to. In fact, I did have a nice book by somebody he served with, the Sergeant Presley I Knew or something it's called, but I don't have that one anymore. But, you know, looking back on it, even if he looked back on it with fondness, he has to have looked back on it with enormous, almost bitterness as well, because it was him being away, the worry of him being away and overseas that basically finished off Gladys and sort of exacerbated her ill health and sent her to an early grave. So it must have been a real sort of dual-edged sword looking back for him over those army years. And of course he met Priscilla. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say any more than that. He met Priscilla. Yeah. So yeah, this is the special edition. Then we sort of go into Elvis coming back and appearing on the Sinatra show. But yeah, a really nice volume, this one. Let's see if I can see when it was, because it says it's a 50th anniversary, but so this was published, doesn't actually give us a year. Oh, 2010. It does, 2010. Yep. So great volume by Jerry Osborne there. As I say, if you do want a copy, you can pick it up on his website. It's just densely packed with information and you know, one of those books you can just pick up and dive into and keep finding out different things every time. So well worth it. Or if you do see it come up on the second-hand market, it's reasonably priced. So I'd say I'd going to give that a hearty recommendation too. If it was down to one book, I think it would probably be This Date with Elvis, closely followed by Elvis in Paris. So the other two I showed were pretty cheap and easy to find, but not quite as detailed as some of these. But there we go. There's what I've got in the old collection relating to Elvis and those 2 years that he spent serving Uncle Sam. So let me know in the comments what you think. I hope that was enjoyable. If it was enjoyable, could you do me a favour and click on the old like? That would be great. And if you haven't subscribed, maybe consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate that. So we've gone through the movie years. We've gone through the army years. I'm almost inclined. I think what I'm going to do, my 70s series seemed to go down quite well. So I think maybe this feels like a natural segue into a 60s series. Now, if I do a 60s series, there won't be as many episodes, because I think for individual years, I've got way more books that concentrate on individual years in the 70s than I have in the 60s. So I'll have some that are on years in the 60s. I'll have some that are on particular movies, but I don't think I can give it quite as much detail to show in terms of books and what have you as I did with the 70s. But I'll give it the best crack I can. So I think that's where I'm going to go. I think let's move on and do a year by year of the 60s, or as best as I can get to that with my collection. So that's what I'm going to do next time. Until then, have yourselves a great week. Take care. Ta-da.
We'll meet you again. May God bless you. Adios.